From the lows of the production disaster of Episode 5 to the highs of Ultra Instinct Goku breaking the internet, Dragon Ball Super is a series defined by its ups and downs. The series began airing in 2015 and undoubtedly got off to a controversial and tumultuous start that many were left in shock at the existing state of the new series. From the chaotic and rushed production behind the scenes that left fans with a mediocre and disappointing product, to the decision of the material to adapt and stories to tell that was just as shocking, there were many significant factors that contributed to Dragon Ball Super's harrowing beginnings. Even more factors were the complete collapse of production that resulted in episodes barely fit to be aired on television and the redundant material that no one cared to see due to it being inferior to its previous versions. Dragon Ball Super spent the better part of an entire year in purgatory that left many wondering if Super could ever reach the heights of its predecessor in even the slightest of ways. But eventually, something would come that left fans salivating at the mouths to see as it generated a new hype similar to that of what Dragon Ball Z even produced. This is the story of how the newly revealed form during the epic confrontation between Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku vs. Hit saved Dragon Ball Super and lifted it from its limbo and mediocrity by providing the series' first truly hype moment that had Dragon Ball fans everywhere rejoicing. This is the story of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, the moment that saved Dragon Ball Super. My name is Shepazard. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and to leave a comment about the video as it helps the video grow and it helps the channel grow. As I touched on somewhat during the introduction, Dragon Ball Super got off to a very tumultuous start when the series first began airing in 2015. There was a plethora of factors that contribute to what many consider to be a train wreck of a beginning in Dragon Ball Super's early days. If you were watching weekly back then and were involved in the weekly community discussing the episodes online, you may already be keen on some of the issues I'm about to examine. Dragon Ball returned to kick off its modern incarnation with Battle of Gods in 2013, which turned out to be a massive success. Battle of Gods' success is what paved the way for the stories after it to follow, which would eventually result in Dragon Ball Super's arrival. Battle of Gods was a brand new story penned by Toriyama himself, which features a fresh new story with exciting new characters, new fights, and new forms. All things which are defining of Dragon Ball. It also took place in the 10-year time skip following the defeat of Majin Buu, meaning we'd get insight into the events of a time period we weren't exposed to in the original run of the Dragon Ball manga. But to further add to the excitement and success surrounding it, we were also getting it in movie format, meaning it was receiving a movie quality production and movie quality budget, granting it more time to be made from a scripting, directing, and animation perspective, as well as the other numerous things that go into producing a movie. Being a movie, it was granted the luxury of looking like one, meaning it had stellar animation that enabled action sequences, which is what Dragon Ball is known for, to truly shine. Plus, it also featured a stellar soundtrack, such as when Hero by Flow played during the Goku vs. Beerus fight. The Battle of Gods movie is still looked on fondly even to this day, and due to its massive success, it also featured a sequel in Resurrection F. As Resurrection F is also a movie, the previous points I mentioned regarding it having a movie-level production also apply here. Resurrection F wasn't as well received as Battle of Gods, and it isn't looked back on as fondly due to the lack of a compelling narrative and unsatisfying ending. The common complaints are the lack of story, with it just boiling down to Frieza is back for revenge, but despite that, it still received a movie-level production and featured some enjoyable fights with the debut of new forms such as Super Saiyan Blue and Golden Frieza. Despite its shortcomings, it can still be enjoyed for the stellar art animation it received, even though the story is far from compelling. But we still received 2 new movies with fresh new content we hadn't seen before. That very fact is what contributed so greatly to Dragon Ball Super's early struggles. It was a baffling decision where they would readapt those 2 movies in anime format, but by the resulting product being a far inferior iteration to that of the movies, it resulted in disaster. Lots of excitement surrounding Super when it was announced, because it was a new Dragon Ball anime that was in production and it would soon be airing. But upon learning that instead of receiving exciting new material that would be rehashing the same 2 stories we just recently received in movies, skepticism about the new series began to arise. This fear and skepticism was justified when people saw the resulting product. Toei Animation opting to readapt Battle of Gods and Resurrection F was a bit baffling to begin with, especially considering we had just received Battle of Gods and Resurrection F in movie quality all very recently. But taking the perspective that they just wanted to streamline all of Dragon Ball Super to make it an easier watch from beginning to end is understandable and somewhat reasonable. But that really only applies if the product they are providing is stellar, and the Dragon Ball Super versions of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, when compared to their movie counterparts, are notoriously inferior. Rehashing this material left fans watching Super every week experiencing content they had already seen for 2 entire arcs. For almost 30 episodes, we had little new and interesting content, meaning that fans had little investment in the series on a weekly basis, and little to no buzz surrounding the series. The manga actually had more excitement at this point due to it having new content regarding the Universe 6 arc, while the anime was stuck in purgatory pumping out mediocre and inferior versions of content fans could just go watch elsewhere in movie format for an arguably better experience. This made watching Super on a weekly basis kind of like a grind. By the time the Resurrection F arc came around and the collapse that ensued with that, people were no longer excited about Super. The buzz and excitement of it being a new series series that was so prevalent during the series announcement had worn off due to nothing interesting happening, and everyone was desperately awaiting the end of the Resurrection F adaptation so new content could finally be seen. To make matters worse, minor amounts of overall uninteresting filler was added to fill things out, which only further delayed the arrival of a new story. The lack of new content, the bad quality product being produced, and the grueling wait all culminated in an overall very dull experience. We already know that rehashing the same old content made Super's overall viewing experience less enjoyable, as fans could go and watch the movie version of the same events at any time. But what made matters worse is that the anime is widely considered to be the far inferior version of these events, as I touched on earlier. There are several reasons that give this issue substance. Battle of Gods and Resurrection F were both movies, meaning they had movie quality production times and budgets. Dragon Ball Super didn't have that luxury. Dragon Ball Super is infamous for its ridiculous short production time from the moment the work on the series began to the moment it began airing. It was extremely rushed, as Super had a far shorter production time than the average anime to produce and animate the show, resulting in animators and all the staff being incredibly rushed and unable to produce a quality product due to the lack of time allotted. Resurrection F released on April 18, 2015 in Japan. Super would be announced a few weeks later and would begin airing just a couple of months later in July, meaning in a 3-month time span we had the release of Resurrection F in theaters and the first episode of Dragon Ball Super. There's little doubt that after Resurrection F was wildly successful at the box office and yielded a massive profit, that Toei and other studios involved were rushing to get the series produced to capitalize on the success of the movie, even though they were sacrificing the quality of the product as a result. If you're a longtime Dragon Ball fan, you may already be familiar with the production issue of Dragon Ball Super, especially early on. This was evident watching weekly due to the subpar art animation of the series. One example of this is the legendary, and not for good reasons, Episode 5 of Dragon Ball Super, which featured Goku vs. Beerus on King Kai's planet. This episode became infamous due to the production issues plaguing it and has spawned memes and complaints that persist even to this day. It's common to see screenshots from this episode even today, which is a testament to how much it still lives on in the minds of Dragon Ball fans and just how rough an era that 2015 was for Dragon Ball Super. People often remember Super fondly for the likes of Ultra Instinct, but the ending of Dragon Ball Super was significantly different than its early days. The Battle of Gods arc wasn't all bad. Some episodes featured solid animated sequences, but it was plagued by another issue as well, the lack of new content. The Battle of Gods arc made some changes compared to the movie, but these changes were so minuscule that it didn't add any real value in terms of watching it over its movie counterpart. One minor change was the venue of Bulma's party, or some added filler sequences here and there. The best change that was made was the added action sequences between Goku and Beerus, but at the end of the day, most people would recommend watching the movie iteration instead. The Resurrection F arc was plagued by even worse issues. By the point of Goku vs. Frieza, production behind the scenes was in a complete disaster, as each and every episode continued to look extremely subpar. This was widely considered the worst patch in the entirety of the series, as well as its worst animated portion. Resurrection F added some changes, such as Ginyu taking Tagoma's body or briefly seeing Gotenks. But at the end of the day, the movie iteration is still far and away considered to be the superior product, which I'm inclined to agree with. Despite nearly 30 episodes of rehashed content, lackluster production, and the grueling wait for new and interesting content, that day would finally come with the arrival of Champa and Vados for the Universe 6 arc, which would introduce a plethora of new characters and breathe new life into Super, which had been limping along and barely coasting by, and with it would come what was by far the most exciting moment of the series to that point. Universe 6 really kicked off shortly after Resurrection F, where we see Champa and Vados arrive on Beerus' planet. They decide to do a 5-on-5 tournament, and if Universe 6 wins, they get Universe 7's Earth. This was mainly inspired by Universe 7's Earth's delicious food, which Beerus spent so much time enjoying. This was the first time we were really exploring outside Universe 7. We first learned of the other universes in Battle of Gods, where Beerus and Whis revealed there were other universes out there with many strong fighters, so this was a very exciting time for Dragon Ball fans. Upon learning about the universes, many fans expected Dragon Ball would use that as a catalyst to begin telling stories outside of Universe 7. So when the next storyline was just set primarily on Earth and rehashing Frieza as a villain, it was a bit disappointing to say the least. We had to see several new characters participate in this tournament though, in Frost, Potamo, Magetta, Kaba, and Hit. It being a tournament arc created skepticism, as the plot would mainly revolve around fighting and not have much deeper storylines, which is fine considering Dragon Ball's done that before. By the time this arc started airing in the anime, we'd already been getting Universe 6 content in the manga, being why the manga carried a lot more interest compared to the anime at this point until the anime would eventually surpass it. In my opinion, as well as others, the Universe 6 arc got off to a rough start. First of all, people were disappointed for Gohan's absence in the tournament following his poor showing against Frieza in Resurrection F. Another complaint was the teasing of Majin Buu being a fighter, which many found exciting, only for them to use the reasoning of Buu falling asleep to make him miss the tournament. This was most likely done due to Buu being a character with many overpowered abilities, but it was still a disappointing development nonetheless. Some of the first fights of the tournament included the likes of Goku, Piccolo, Frost, and Potamo, but none of these early fights were all that exciting. The exciting part mainly arrived when we witnessed Vegeta running through several of the opposing team, the likes of Frost, Magetta, and Kaba. The first several episodes weren't very exciting and aren't often discussed today, but a few solid episodes were sprinkled in with the likes of Vegeta vs. Kaba, with Vegeta assuming a mentor-like role to help Kaba ascend to Super Saiyan before ultimately unleashing Super Saiyan Blue to end the fight. This plot thread set up seeds for Vegeta visiting the Universe 6 Saiyans on planet Sadala, a plot thread which is still yet to be revisited but has long been theorized about. While fun, many considered the arc up until this point to be mediocre without much significant development. But when Goku vs. Hit arrived and Goku being unable to successfully counter Hit's time skip as Hit continued to improve, Goku would have to unleash a long-forgotten technique he hadn't used since he fought Frieza on Namek, the Kaioken. The Kaioken, the technique used to provide a brief power-up at the cost of damage to the user's body, was first introduced in the Saiyan arc where Goku pushed his body to the limits to clash with Vegeta. Goku would go on to use this technique a few more times against the likes of Frieza, where he unleashed a Kaioken times 20, which proved unsuccessful. But after that, the Kaioken faded away as an obsolete power-up technique due to its drawbacks, and Super Saiyan essentially replacing it as Goku's go-to power-up. Fans always clamored for the Kaioken to return in some way. A lot of people were fond of the idea of Earthlings, such as Krillin learning it and utilizing it in battle due to not possessing transformations like the Saiyans. Ultimately, nothing of this nature would ever occur. If you watch Dragon Ball Super weekly and followed the news, you may recall that episode titles would always be released several weeks in advance of the episode airing. This would always grant us insight into what the upcoming episodes would be composed of. Episode titles dropped one day, and it would give us the first notion of what would soon be coming Dragon Ball Super episode 39. The title of this episode is The Advanced Time Skip Fights Back. Will it come forth? Goku's new technique. Fans instantly began theorizing what Goku's new technique may be, and some predicted correctly. One prediction was that of Goku once again utilizing the Kaioken, but using it in conjunction with Super Saiyan Blue. The thought of this was far from far-fetched. I mentioned earlier that Frieza was the last time Goku truly used the Kaioken in a pinch, but it wasn't the very last time he used it overall in Dragon Ball. Also, the thought of seeing Goku using Kaioken with a Super Saiyan transformation also wasn't unheard of, as we'd actually seen it happen before. In the Dragon Ball Z filler arc, during Goku's fight with Pikkon in the Otherworld Tournament, we actually see Goku use the Kaioken in conjunction with his Super Saiyan form very briefly to gain the upper hand. This development could be what inspired Toei to bring Kaioken back with a Super Saiyan form. Keep in mind, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken isn't exactly a thing in the manga, as Protective Super Saiyan Blue was an alternate route it took. Though we did see Goku briefly power up in the Tournament of Power, where Krillin said it seemed like he was using Kaioken in the manga. Goku was pushed into a corner against Hit. Hit's developed and improved time skip was overwhelming Goku. We then see Goku reveal that he has a technique that he was reserving in hopes of using it against Beerus one day. We then witnessed an awesome power-up sequence that was very reminiscent of the golden days of Dragon Ball Z, where Goku yells Kaioken for the first time in decades, exclaiming it's a Kaioken times 10. We then see a Super Saiyan Blue aura consumed in a reddish and purplish outer aura, completely indicating that the Kaioken has indeed returned. Witnessing Goku unleash an exciting new power-up in an awesome scene such as this as he pushed his body to the limits and his power beyond what he could normally endure, I truly feel like this was the most exciting moment in Dragon Ball Super and the series' overall best episode thus far. Goku then charges at Hit as the spectators look on in shock due to Goku's reveal, overwhelming Hit with a newly unleashed Kaioken. Not only did this sequence feel powerful and look amazing due to it being well animated, it was also accompanied by the series' opening song, Chozetsu Dynamic, playing in the background as Goku and Hit engage in an all-out clash that would ultimately end the episode. This scene, composed of an awesome soundtrack, stellar animation, with an exciting transformation sequence that Dragon Ball is known for, capped off with an intense and well-animated ensuing fight between Goku and Hit, instantly made this episode considered the best thus far in the series by many. But what made the scene even more interesting was making what was considered an obsolete technique in the Kaioken relevant once again. Once Goku became a Super Saiyan and attained even more power-ups, there was no use for something like the Kaioken, which was detrimental to the user's body. Something like Super Saiyan was far more powerful to begin with, without the drawbacks. But proving that Kaioken can still be used in a pinch in conjunction with a Super Saiyan transformation makes it still relevant in certain situations. While Kaioken still has the drawbacks to injuring the user's body, Goku proved it can still provide them a temporary power-up to overcome the obstacle in front of them. This Kaioken times 10 on top of Super Saiyan Blue was just what Goku needed to bridge the gap between him and Hit's time skip technique, allowing Goku to fight Hit on equal footing. Plus, it was something that fans had been wanting to see for years. The return of the Kaioken was something they've been asking for a very long time, whether it be in the form of giving it to human characters or seeing Goku combine it with a Super Saiyan transformation. It also marked that Goku was completely going all out, as Super Saiyan Blue at the time was his strongest transformation, and second Kaioken on top of it was him pushing his body to the absolute limit, its breaking point. Goku would go on to forward the fight against Hit, and Monaka and Hit would complete the tournament as Monaka would emerge victorious, with Hit also eliminating himself. But this Goku versus Hit fight and the introduction of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken was truly a turning point for the series. People were excited for a plethora of reasons. Seeing Goku clash in an all-out struggle against an interesting and powerful new adversary, witnessing a well-animated fight, the awesome power-up scene, and the return of the Kaioken itself. This episode is well liked and enjoyed for many different reasons. The Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken and the ensuing fight is the first time people truly felt excited about Dragon Ball Super, and it took a really long time to get there. And to an extent, it even saved the series as it showed many that despite all of the series' early struggles, it could still produce amazing content that truly encapsulated what Dragon Ball truly is. Dragon Ball Super was plagued by a mountain of issues in its earlier days. From its subpar production to the rehashed content, fans were left waiting, foaming at the mouth for something new and exciting. While the prospect of new characters from Universe 6 intrigued many fans, the early episodes of the tournament still left something to be desired. But by the time Goku vs. Hit arrived and the return of the Kaioken was unveiled, those expectations were surpassed. This marked a turning point for Super, as shortly after this, the Goku Black arc would arrive, which many considered to be a vast improvement over the series' previous arcs. This introduction of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken is still discussed today, as many fans still look on it as one of their favorite moments in the series. It's still referred to as one of the series' most exciting moments, along with the likes of Ultra Instinct. Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken and its introduction by Goku breathed new life into the series that was barely treading water, an event which made fans truly excited for the series once more. Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku vs. Hit really got people talking about the series again, and got people excited for the future. And shortly after this, future Trunks would return to the series, and the Goku Black would be introduced, and the hype for the series would only continue to grow. But that's how I think Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku saved Dragon Ball Super. My name is Champasard. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, hit the like button and consider hitting the subscribe button, as it helps my channel grow and it helps the video grow. Also, let me know what you think in the comments. How do you like Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken and its reveal versus Hit? Do you still like it as much now as you did when it was first revealed? Don't forget to let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching the video. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time.